And we are live. Yay!
Oh, super. Happy Tuesday, folks.
Happy Tuesday.
I hope
indeed.
you're all full of vim and vigor, or is it something in vinegar, we say?
Piss and vinegar.
Piss and vinegar. Okay, I didn't know if I was allowed to say that, but still. But
I think Zuckerberg's a bit too busy to be policing
maybe
you.
so,
I
yes.
think he's fighting Elon Musk off with a
Just
stick.
another TeaFlix Tuesday.
Exactly. Should be our new jingle.
Yeah. So I trust you're all fit and ready to take the world on one more time.
Okay. Do you see us live, Martin? He's gone quiet up there.
Oh, he's probably got his headphones on.
Probably. Can you see us live, please? Just double checking. Make sure we're ready to rock with our fantastic guest today.
Yes.
Erin is she's a pistol, man. She's an absolute firecracker.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I trust you're all fighting fit and ready to take the world by storm again.
Yep.
So, wow, it sounds like I've had a bit too much gin on the cornflakes this morning, doesn't it?
Already.
So, Ruth, why don't you introduce our wonderful guest and let's get the show started.
Absolutely. So without further ado, our wonderful guest today is a lovely lady called Erin Riley, who has been around the block and with her career and her friendships and her life. And she's got a fascinating book out and she's a music supervisor doing wonderful things. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and the crowd goes wild, Miss Erin Riley.
Hello, Erin. Good morning.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
To be here.
I hope technology is kind to us today. We had a bit of a mishap last time, didn't we?
We sure did.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway, here we are.
Yeah.
We're here.
We are, indeed. Good. We're here and you've got power and you didn't get 9 inches of rain yesterday.
Oh, no, it's been
no, but on Sunday, I drove home from upstate New York in that flood that actually washed people away. So it took me 6 hours to get home from upstate New York. Should have been about 3 hours.
Just terrible.
Yeah,
but I'm here to tell. I'm here to tell.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
So,
no, I read your book recently, Dark Force, and
quite the story.
Oh, amazing! Yes. So I hope you will talk about that at length today and let all our friends know about it. And
but I'd like to start, since today's actually Richie Sambora's birthday. I'd like to start in the rock and roll world. And when did you first become interested in music, and how did you sort of get that into your career and that whole crazy story?
Well, I don't want to go out of order, but I have a lot of good Richie Sambora stories too.
Oh,
excellent.
Go ahead.
I'll save those for later.
Okay.
Like almost everyone, music has always been a huge part of my life. As a young child, I grew up in Manhattan at 90th and Broadway, and I loved Broadway show tunes. So I was always belting at the top of my lungs, singing like anywhere that I could get away with it without being told to like shut that down. So Broadway show tunes, and then I loved the AM radio in New York City in the 60s. It was so much fun. We had so many hit songs. Of course, the Beatles, ruled the airwaves at that time. But there was a lot of great music that sounded like that, right? Fun, British Invasion, Mersey Beat stuff, and a lot of great pop singles that were fun, sing-along stuff. So I really enjoyed music as a child. I went to go see the 1910 Fruit Gum Company for my first concert at the Radio City Music Hall.
Wow.
So,
very cool.
Right? That was my childhood. Music was always a big part of my childhood. Growing up in New York City, I had kind of a unique upbringing in that both of my parents worked, which was not really normal in the late 50s, early 60s. But my mother was a fashion model and my father was an actor. So as they worked, they had totally bizarre hours. They were coming and going and traveling. And so there was no standard sort of family dinners and family kinds of upbringing. It was very, I guess, different.
Do we call it catch as catch can?
Yes, I would definitely call it that. I call myself the original latchkey kid.
There you go.
Because New York was fairly safe back in the 60s, before the 70s. And so parents were perfectly comfortable leaving their kids on their own to navigate the city streets. I would walk to school by myself, to public school, PS 84. I would take the bus downtown to the village to take dance class. As a kid, 6, 7 years old, it was like nothing, But in some ways, I feel as though that kind of an upbringing sort of wired my brain for sort of a survival kind of.
It did.
Yeah.
Very hyper vigilant, very hyper aware of everything around me, somewhat untrusting, suspicious, whatever.
Which is actually amazing when you get into the later story of how you got into the situation with Mr. Dark Force.
Mr. Dark Force, right? Exactly. Well, to protect myself as a child, I learned to sort of compartmentalize and shut down dangerous input and say, okay, just keep moving, et cetera. And certainly the parenting that was available in the 60s, no offense, I'm sure you girls did better than maybe my parents did, perhaps. But it was very hands-off. It was very dismissive to the children, speak when spoken to, don't do as I do as I say. Nobody cares what you have to say. I'll give you something to cry about. Those kinds of phrases.
Yeah.
And while my parents were kidding, I'm sure, because that's what they heard from their parents, I internalized that. And I took that to mean that I didn't really have a sense of self or a sense of being. I was sort of property to my parents and they made all the rules.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's how I grew up. So back to music just for a second. When I turned 11 years old, my parents moved us out of New York City. My father had promised to quit drinking if we could get out of the city where was all the temptation and the bar on every corner and all his bar buddy friends. Yeah. So we moved to a farmhouse. 300-year-old farmhouse outside of Lambertville, New Jersey, with 8 acres. Is total culture shock. And while it was interesting and an interesting, great life experience for me, I lost all my friends. Right? I didn't have a good family or a tight family. I now had no friends. So that was the second time that music showed up for me in such a big way because the musicians became my friends.
Yeah.
And I had the very good fortune when I got involved in the commercial music business to thank one of the most important ones, and that was James Taylor. I got thanked personally by myself for being there when nobody else was.
Oh, that's really nice. What radio stations would you have been listening to in those days in that area?
Back in let's see. In New York City, I would listen to the top 40 stuff. So it'd be like 77 WABC. I can't sing, but I can pretend. Those kinds of stations, the top 40 stations, what I listened to. But when I came to Philadelphia, I want to say the Philadelphia, Jersey area where I could get Philly radio. I was listening to Wi-Fi 92 or those things, the top 40 stations. I wasn't really a rocker. I mean, I'm known as a rocker. Okay. Yeah. But I'm like a pop fan. I don't know if that came from the Broadway or if that came from the top 40.
Okay.
And listen, I love rock and roll. But the things that I lean toward are more pop than hard rock. Like even if it's hard rock, the rock I would like would be Aerosmith. Right?
Yes. Well, we have questions.
There will be questions.
Considered a hard rock band.
Yeah.
They're very pop in their songwriting style, right?
Sure, very much so. Yeah.
Right. So that would be the kind of hard rock I would like. But as a teenager, living in New Jersey without friends, I just spent all my time with headphones. That's it. I'm like laying on my floor with the album jackets and the headphones and absorbing everything I could about the great music of that period, 60s and 70s.
Sure. I think the 70s as a decade is well underrated. Some incredible music in the 70s, the Linda Ronstadts and the Eagles and Poco, Zeppelin. I mean, all of that stuff. I think that everybody sort of tends to think of the 70s as, orange shag haircuts and orange bell bottoms and I Think I Love You. But there was so much more to it than that, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Wings, great band of the 70s, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And even in the late 70s, we got the Talking Heads and Elvis Costello and, Cheap Trick or other bands that I just love. So many great, exciting bands. And then, of course, punk came in toward the late 70s. And but back to Linda Ronstadt for a second. Linda Ronstadt and I spent a lot of time together with my hairbrush. I was one of those, like, sing to your hairbrush in your bedroom and dance around and whatnot. And it was Linda Ronstadt and Ann Wilson were the girls that I would
amazing voices.
Dream of being. I wanted to be those girls.
Right. And so at what point did you move? Obviously, it must have moved out of the farmhouse in the middle of nowhere and got back into radio promotion and then the big whirlwind of actually meeting all these heroes. And what's that like when you meet some of these people?
Well, I always considered it for me a real privilege because these people changed my life. They helped me through the worst times. Well, they had changed everybody's lives in that period of time. I think everybody has an artist or two that they carried along with them and was their go-to to make them feel better or help them process an experience. Yes. So yeah. After high school, well, let me just say at the very end of high school, I had a big trauma in my household. And not that I hadn't had plenty of traumas leading up to it. When you have, entertainment business parents, and one's alcoholic, one is fairly narcissistic, and kids are on their own, all kinds of crazy stuff is happening in Manhattan. Yeah. But at the end of my high school years, my father sadly fell down a flight of stairs. And he was very badly injured, had very bad brain damage. And several brain surgeries to get through it, and became epileptic and was taking medicine for that. And then my mom left and abandoned myself and my brother. Now I was older. I was 18, I was 17, 18 when this happened, but my brother was only 15.
That's still a kid,
Yeah, so she took off and left me with my dad and my brother, and my dad was drinking on top of these medicines, on top of epilepsy. So he was falling again. I had to run. I just had to escape from it all. I was so angry with my mother for leaving me in charge of this nightmare of a situation. So I just took off and I moved to California. So I was 19 years old. I moved to California. I just had a little hourly job I got through a friend of a friend working as a billing clerk for a photo lab. So my job was to take all of the printed pictures and add up the cost and on my paper calculator.
Yes.
Paper calculator. And then I would rip it off and I would staple, and I'd put it in the front. And through that really cool job in Los Angeles, I met a lot of really interesting people. One of the people that would come in regularly was John Derek, the producer.
Bo Derek's husband.
Yep. And even Ursula Andress, all three of them would come in together, another wife of his. So we got celebrities all over the place, and I'm starting to feel better. Like, not just because they're celebrities, but I'm away from the trauma in my household.
Of course.
Yes.
I'd had a lot of personal traumas that are in the book. I gained a lot of weight when all that stuff happened with my dad, about 75 pounds. So that was bad. Wow. Yep. So when I got to LA, all that got better. I'm away from it. And I'm here to tell you, you can run away from your problems. I mean, temporarily, of course, but temporarily you can run away and give yourself time to actually figure some stuff out. So
that's true.
Too many people think they have to stay where they are and keep repeating the same. Matt, what is it they say? What's the second sign of madness? Looking for hairs on the palm of your hands. Oops. Whoops.
Oops.
Oops. Yeah. No, it's just repeat. If you're in a spin cycle, I think a lot of people they do emotionally and financially get stuck there. But if you can just, have the chutzpah to get up and go like you did, it literally can be life-changing. We've done it several times.
Yeah. And may again, who knows?
You never know.
Yeah.
Right. Come to Philadelphia, ladies. I'm sure we could get into some trouble. Come on.
Absolutely. We could do all girl cream cheese wrestling.
Oh yeah. So let's see that. Okay. So now I'm at the studio, the photo studio. And I don't want to go too deep into this story, but one of my coworkers, her brother's band was getting airplay on a local radio station called K-Rock in Los Angeles. Yeah. She asked me to call the request line, and I ended up in a conversation with the DJ. And I had no idea DJs picked up their own phones and talked to people. I had no idea. Yep. Well, he was like, I'd love to meet you sometime. We had a nice little conversation, and he stopped by the photo studio and asked me on a date. I was like, I'm going out with a big LA DJ. It's kind of cool, right? Yes. So we started dating, and because I worked during the day and he worked in the evening, I would go to the station, with him. And I would help him pull records, and I would answer the phones for him. And one day I said, hey, how hard is it to do this? This is like a fun gig. And he said, Erin, a trained monkey could do this. And I thought, well, that's for me. That's for me.
Well, that's charming.
I started volunteering at that very radio station that he was at the time. It was called K West. And I want to say it's no longer around, but K West. And then I went to K-Rock in Los Angeles, back where I had originally met him. And I kind of sort of squeezed my way in there and wouldn't leave. I was sleeping on the couch until they put me on the air.
Wow.
Excellent.
It took a while. I was doing overnights coming on after Rodney Bingenheimer.
I remember.
Anybody that knows that name, he is the mayor of Sunset Strip. There's a documentary film about him.
That's right.
Yeah.
And LA and radio legend. And he would be on the air on the weekends until midnight. And then I would come on at midnight and I would walk into the air studio to any number of crazy visitors that were hanging out with Rodney. It could be Stiv Bators. It could be Annette Funicello. It could be, you know, Gunnar and Matt Nelson when they were like 8 or 9 with their dad and their sister Tracy.
Yeah, they're friends and clients of ours.
Right? Yeah. Okay. So, but it was always exciting to go to work. It was exciting. And so that whole time, Los Angeles in the late 70s at an alternative station that's just breaking out with really amazing DJs like Jed the Fish and April Whitney. And, you know, we had Larry Woodside and the insane Daryl Wayne and a lot of fun people. It's before it really broke those names.
Friend of ours in Nashville, Hollis, owns a club and presentation lounge called the Eighth Room. It used to be Douglas Corner in Nashville. And he's just done a whole themed Rodney Bingenheimer night. And everyone all went dressed up in 70s stuff. And they had old sets of music that he used to play. And I think they screened the documentary and stuff. So, yeah, Bingenheimer is a big deal, big name.
Fabulous. So, yeah, I'm on between midnight and 6 a.m. playing, you know, public service announcements and things nobody wants to listen to. But I'm still a part of something that feels really, really exciting.
Right. But if I was driving home from the Roxy or the Rainbow at 2:30 a.m., I'm only going to be listening to you, right?
Yes.
Captive audience.
Yep.
And that's how I got my next job. Somebody was up in the middle of the night. He was a program director of a cool radio station in Santa Barbara called K-Tide. And he heard my voice on the radio at 2 o'clock in the morning, just like you're saying.
Yep.
The next day, because like I told you, I was sleeping on a couch at a radio station, practically living there. That's how I used to break into the business, is just don't leave, and eventually it'll work out.
Be the thing that wouldn't leave.
Be the thing that wouldn't leave until they're like, all right, you go on the radio. Somebody didn't show up. It's your turn. Somebody didn't show.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that is exactly what happened. Is somebody didn't show. You know, that's how I got on the radio. But I lost my train of thought. Where was I talking about?
K-Wave in Santa Barbara.
Oh, in Santa Barbara, how I got there. So I was there the next morning because I'm sleeping on the couch. I was answering the phones, running errands for the sales department, and the phone rang. And it was some program director in Santa Barbara saying, do you know who was on overnight last night? I'd like to speak to that person. And I said, it was me. And he said, well, I program a station in Santa Barbara and I would like to offer you a job. Would you?
Paradise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, a real job with wages?
Wow.
Yeah. So he just heard me. Now, to be fair, everyone was into K-Rock at that time. Everyone in the country was like, we got to get a hold of this format, this music that's new, that's really busting out, and all these cool bands. And a lot of the rock stations were coming up against these alternative stations and thinking they needed to incorporate some of this more modern music into their playlists. And so that's probably why I got hired. I got hired because they figured she knows all that stuff. And I'm never going to get one of the big DJs to leave the station. So let's get the little overnight girl.
Wow.
I just got real lucky. Right place, right time a lot.
And where along the course of things did you meet our lovely mutual friend, Mimi Chen?
Well, Mimi has always been like an idol of mine. You know, there are those girls in the radio and the music business that predate me by 5, 6, 7 years. Like, I'm not going to give away anybody's ages or anything, but Dusty Street, Allison Steele, Dusty Rhodes, Mimi Chen. You know, there's 5 or so people that we all looked up to. I'm kind of what people consider the second round of women, the second wave, right? So I was always aware of her. And she and I are actually working together on a project right now, ironically.
Yes, I was reading about that yesterday.
WomenWhoRock.com.
Fantastic.
And so, that is a URL, WomenWhoRock.com. One of our partners, his name is Chris Miller. He had purchased this URL many, many years ago and always wanted to do an all-female centric radio station.
Fantastic.
So all the old radio DJs that are girls are all involved in this thing.
Right.
And we're just putting it together. And we have a weekly Zoom meeting on Thursday. So I see Mimi every Thursday.
Well, give her big smoochy kisses from us.
I will. Oh, and another one of our mutual friends, I'm wearing my original, can you see this? May Pang.
May Pang.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Original May Pang necklace. This is actually my second one because I bought one and a friend loved it so much. I gave
another one.
Yeah. So get another one.
Yeah, no, May is a sweetheart. I talked to her last week. She's actually out with her prints and photographs. She's doing very limited edition signed prints at various appearances. So go check her Facebook page and her maypang.com. She might be actually coming through Philly. You should go have a cup of tea with her.
Yes, you never know.
A bowl of noodles or something. She's a sweetheart. We love May.
She has already been through Philly, and I did see her.
Oh, you see?
Good,
there you go. Good job. I'm not your social secretary, isn't it? Day late and $1 short.
That's right. You just should have called me a few months ago and said, hey, I need you to do something for me. Well, maybe she'll come back around. The movie isn't in full distribution yet. Her, the weekend movie, her beautiful weekend movie. So.
The Lost Weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. The Lost Weekend movie.
The Lost Weekend. Yeah. Definitely worth seeing. So anyway, so you do this whole radio thing. And then, of course, at some point fast forward in your life, you meet Mr. Dark Force.
Yes. Well,
so how did that all happen? And being so savvy and so smart and so wary of people,
what happened?
How? Yeah. I mean, for our audience, I'm watching the comments and stuff here. You are kind of an expert on narcissism, are you not? And how did you not spot it? Or did you become an expert after you'd had this experience with this person?
Well, everybody who goes through a relationship with a real narcissist comes out with a PhD in narcissism. But no, I absolutely unwillingly never was interested in the topic. But yeah, I know everything after the fact. We've actually skipped over about 20 years. So I just want to do.
Sorry about that.
I know. And let me tell you why. My story is a little different than some people's stories. Any relationship with a narcissist, runs a pattern of abuse, the love bombing, the devaluing stage, the discard stage, and the hoovering stage, just like any abusive relationship.
Yep.
That's physical too. I hit you, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. Here's flowers, repeat that cycle.
Yep.
So let's go back to Santa Barbara. I'm in Santa Barbara. I'm 23 years old. I got a big job. I got really lucky, talking about being in the right place at the right time. And I got a job as music director of WMMR in Philadelphia.
Wow.
So that's a big station. I went from the 129th largest market to the 4th largest market in one job jump.
Wow. Isn't that wonderful?
No kidding.
And that was part of the same reason WMMR was getting hip to the K-Rock format and those kinds of bands. And they're like, we got to get this girl that knows the format so that our competitors, don't get the better of us.
It's amazing. People who just drive around in their cars or listen to the radio in the background at work. I guess 90% of the people outside of the business don't really realize there's a format. They think that just somebody's sitting there pushing a button like a jukebox and playing a record. There's so much goes into the formatting and the audience, the demographics, and then the relationships with the labels, and then getting the stars to come in and do interviews. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable amount of work. It's like a newspaper. And people, today's newspaper that all these people worked on is tomorrow's fish and chip wrapper, right?
Right. Exactly.
People don't really realize, I think, that the amount of talent that it takes to put together the format and then make it work and run. And then if you find it's not working, tweak it. Right.
Right. And you can only go from feedback from your audience.
That's right.
So the job that I got, go ahead, Angie, you were saying?
Yeah. Plus the advertisers would have to be stroked and pacified and.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and in those days, radio stations didn't have websites for feedback or social media. It was the girl or boy answering the phone, wasn't it? That was how you got your letters in the mail, but 10 days after the fact. So, I mean, it's really kind of like water divining, programming a station back in those days, right?
Absolutely.
Finding the sweet spot.
And making your way as a woman in an all-male world, that must have been really tough. A girl.
It was, and you two as women, you know, it's really tough. And I don't want to, I don't want to whine or complain. I feel very privileged to have had an opportunity, to work in a field that was so much fun and that was such a passion for me. Yeah. So I feel as though it was a real privilege, and I was very fortunate to have all the wonderful experiences that I had while I was doing that. But there's quite a lot in the book that I talk about my years of working in the music business, and with the patriarchal structure or the misogyny. You can't play two women artists back to back. You're an artist. Can't play two female voices back to back. Can't have two female DJs back to back.
Yep.
Why? You can have two male voices back to back, but you can't have two female voices back to back. Like,
that makes sense.
Wow.
Not like I didn't notice that, right? So I just did the best I could, given my surroundings and wanting very much to keep my job, but I definitely had to cater to the males.
Absolutely, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, guys. It's true.
So that's what brought you back to Philly, I guess.
Yeah, this great job. So the job was, I was music director of WMMR, and that meant that all of those record company representatives that you're talking about would all meet with me weekly to play the new songs that were being released by all of the artists, baby bands, all the way up to the latest one by Robert Plant or Eric Clapton or whomever is putting out a new record. The reps would sit with me on Monday. We'd listen to a bunch of CDs or even vinyl albums, because it was early 80s. You're just getting into CDs at the time. And I would take the ones that I thought were the best for the radio station, and I would go into our music meeting on Tuesday and recommend them to the station to add. Yep. And then throughout the week, I would listen to everything that got mailed to me, or any additional CDs. I probably listened to 100 CDs a week of different bands. And I really enjoyed it, honestly, because there were times that I could find a little gem at the bottom of my pile of something that was so clearly like special, needed to be heard, unique, or clearly a hit. That was always such an exciting moment.
Sure.
And how I would listen to the music is I would often put it on in the background while I was on the phone or doing programming or writing out logs or any other things that I needed to do. And if something would catch my attention while I wasn't actively listening, I would go back and, needle it again, because there's something in there that's going to catch your attention from the radio when your attention is really driving. You're driving and you're like, what's that song? Let me turn it up. Right.
That's right.
So, that's how I would identify, hit songs and whatnot. So I did that for about 10 years, and I met every rock star that anybody could want to meet.
Yeah. Any favorites? Any favorites of a funny story?
I have a lot of funny stories. My favorite is Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler is exactly who you all think he is, right? Like, if you think he's this kind of crazy character that, talks in rhymes and things like that, you think, oh, he's this crazy character, but he can't be like that in real life. Oh, he could be a little bit like that in real life. Yeah.
Like Robin Williams. If you met Robin Williams, you got what you paid for.
Right, exactly. So Steven is like that. He is very playful. I think he is a lover of life and a lover of people. Yeah. And he, like everybody, we're all human. He's made his mistakes. He's had his ups and downs. He's had his strengths and weaknesses and whatnot. But inside, he is just a wonderful man. I've met his parents and his sister and the family and all his kids and things. And he's a wonderful father, and he's a wonderful grandfather, and he's just
grandfather. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I loved him the most. He was so much fun. He used to sit with his chin on my shoulder and look in the mirror and say, "You look more like my sister than my sister."
How funny. Oh, yeah. That's good to hear. I've only met him very briefly at events in the company of Julian Lennon, because he sang on one of Julian's records. And he always just seemed very charming, but almost kind of like a ringmaster in a circus. Right?
He really is. He is. He's a very strong personality, very strong personality, but he's fun and playful. He's fun to hang around with. So he was always my favorite.
Kind of a childlike quality. Like he seems like he'd be very curious about everything and everybody.
That's exactly it. And those have been my favorite people to meet. Another person that I got to meet, and I want to dispel any myths. Maybe you've met him too. He's no longer around with us, but David Bowie. Have you ever met David Bowie?
I only briefly once in London, and he was completely out of his head.
That was in heroin days, and he was in a state.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to meet him until after, the Serious Moonlight tour. So anytime after the 80s is when I met him.
Yeah.
And I was just so touched at how interested he is in others. So that's what I found, is that, you would be having a conversation with him and suddenly he'd be, well, tell me what you do and where did you come from and how did this and what do you like and what's your favorite flavor of ice cream or whatever? What's your favorite pizza topping?
Right.
Why are we talking about me? One of us is David Bowie, and it's not me. So why are you talking about me? But I thought he was much warmer than expected, and I love to be around him and Iman, and just a lovely guy.
Yeah, what a talent. Yeah, no, we only met him that once, and it was just in his darkest days. But thank God, he pulled through and gave us all of the stuff that he did in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. But I know that was a big blow losing him. That was, I think it was January of, was it 2019? I think he passed. Somebody on here will correct me.
2016.
No.
It is. And you know how I know I can do this here? So I'm going to just do this with my computer. See, this is my kitchen.
Yeah.
All right. This is my kitchen.
Yeah.
All right. So behind the cabinets in my kitchen, which I had renovated in 2016, is a David Bowie, whatever it's called, a lightning bolt.
Yep.
And a Prince symbol.
Oh.
So if whoever renovates my kitchen is going to know what year it was put up, because it was put up in 2016.
That's wild. God. Yeah, that was such a loss, but a bummer. Anyway, let's go back to the good stuff.
Let's talk about me.
As Joan Rivers would say, enough about me. What do you think about me?
Oh, so you miss her too, right? Funny girl. A funny girl.
Funny girl.
All right. So that's it. So, okay. So now I'm at MMR for 10 years or so, and I'm about 31 or so. And I lost that job. So that was a heartbreak. And I decided maybe it's time to get married, have kids, settle down.
Settle down.
Time to settle down. I'm 30, 31. That's, seems like the right thing to do. Settle down. Well, I guess I just did that too quickly without thinking very much, because the first husband I married was an alcoholic who also had a felony criminal conviction and hadn't paid taxes in 4 years. But
just before we get too far away from David Bowie, our friend Ashley from Birmingham, Alabama, saying, small world tidbit, David Bowie's producer was Tony Visconti, who was married to May Pang.
Yes. That is true.
And the circle closes.
Yes.
Who's also a friend and another terrific, great guy. When I worked for the Grammys, which is many years later, he was the, I guess, the president or trustee of the New York chapter. So he would come to I guess he had to be a trustee because he would come to the trustees meeting. In fact, he played bass for me one time at one of those trustees meetings where I actually sang live. I sang, what's it called? It's Joni Mitchell doing a cover. My analyst told me that I was right out of my head. Do you know that song?
I need to. I love Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. Well, it's a cover song. It's a jazz song, and he played bass for me in the backup. But yeah, Tony Visconti.
Yeah. Anyway, moving back, I just wanted to acknowledge Ashley's comment on here. So.
Right. It's just, this all the interconnection between people.
That's right. That's right. So you decide it's time to find the perfect man, and little did you know.
Little did I know. Maybe I didn't look so, I should have maybe.
It didn't read the fine print, in other words.
No,
exactly.
I needed to check under the hood, and I forgot to check under the hood. So, so I was married for 6 years to my first husband, and it was very difficult because, it took me 5 years to get him off alcohol. And then that last year, he was just raw, like a raw nerve, and we just couldn't keep it together.
Right.
He's a decent guy, but it was definitely, it was a traumatic experience. We did have a son, and I had 3 stepchildren too. So, there was that family thing that I was looking for, since I didn't have a family as a child, or didn't feel like I had a family.
Right.
But in the end, it didn't really work out, and became single again. I spent the last part of my 30s single and working for the Grammy Awards. I was the executive director of the Grammys, and I ran a couple of recording studios and, produced events and did a lot of things. I'm a lot like you, Ruth. Like, I do a lot of, different kinds of things. I'm sort of an organizer.
Many hats.
Many hat person. So I did that. And then that's when I met the dark person. So I was 40 years old. I think I'm the only person I know that met a narcissist for the first time that late in life. A lot of times narcissists will snatch up a young 20-year-old or something that doesn't know any better and love bomb them and, tell them I'm going to make all these wonderful things happen for you in your life. And you're like, I want to believe them.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
Well, I guess I was still in that place when I was 40. I still wanted that thing I didn't have as a child, which was a family. I wanted to feel protected. I wanted to feel seen and heard. The things I didn't feel when I was a child. This guy was really you would never have seen this person coming as a narcissist. He was like Eeyore.
Oh.
Sort of mopey, didn't talk a lot, very quiet, not a lot of friends, very helpful. He seemed to hang on my every word and be very interested in me. And so I used my insane cognitive dissonance skills to tell myself that maybe this would work out. Maybe something different, maybe somebody out of the industry or somebody that's quiet. Maybe I do need a lot of attention. Maybe I need too much attention. Those messages in my head from my childhood, from my mom. Right. So I thought maybe if I got with a guy that was really quiet, then I wouldn't feel like there was any competition. He's so supportive and helpful.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. So I went for that. Within about a year and a half, he had me sold my house that I owned outright. He didn't have any money to put down on a house, but he had a good job and convinced me to sell my house and move in together. Wow. And that's when things changed, and that's what a narcissist will do. They will look like the perfect partner. They will look like they match up with everything that you love. And that's because they are listening and studying, and that's an intention. They are intentionally trying to mirror you so that you go, oh my God, this is my soulmate. This is the person I my whole life for, right?
Yeah.
They might be lying about some of those things. But it certainly gets worse and worse over time if you're in a relationship with a narcissist. Yeah. So that's what happened. I spent 20 years with this man. We lived together.
As we call them in England, what do you call them?
A wussy pussy.
A wussy, but no, I don't think. They come off as wussy in the beginning, right, to get you into this malleable place. But in the end, they just turn into a twat waffle.
Yes, they do. They do.
Oh, that's nice.
What would be a good British slang word for something that's like a monster? Is there a monster word?
No, but in Bavarian they call them Wolperdinger, and it's sort of like they have them on old Bavarian bars, and they're scary as. And then basically it's like a rat's face with little deer antlers and a pig's tail, and they make it's a chupacabra, in other words.
That's it.
It's a Wolperdinger, and it's trying to masquerade as many different things, and in the end, it's just ugly.
I'm going to look that word up because that seems like it's spot on. That seems like the right thing.
Wolperdinger, Wolperdinger, and that's the Bavarian for sort of chupacabra-esque things. And that, to me, that would be the personification or the animalistic version of a twat waffle.
Well,
or a wussy pussy.
A wussy pussy.
Or a wussy pussy. Inside a narcissist is a wussy pussy. Completely. Yes. They are fear-based, and they're afraid of exposure. They're afraid of losing control. They're afraid of invalidation. They're afraid of being seen for who they really are, which is their deep self-loathing. So they invent a persona to show to the world. So some of them are considered what they call overt or grandiose narcissists. You can see those people coming, right? They're like, I'm special, I'm better, only I can fix it. Everybody wants to be me.
Yeah. David Hauser, our friend David, saying that first there's the engagement ring, then there's the wedding ring, then comes the suffer ring.
The suffer ring. That's so. It sounds like he may have had an experience with an actual narcissist.
Yeah. No, it's and Ashley is calling them emotional con men or con people. Like, they can be women too, for sure.
Yes, they can. Yeah, my story is the perspective of a woman, but yes, a narcissist can be male or female. But I really am. I'm out here talking to people because I want to warn people about covert narcissism. I wasn't aware that there's even such a thing at all in my entire life until after this all happened, and I started to do some studying and some research. But somebody who is considered a covert narcissist is operating under the radar. You'll almost never see any of this. The only people that see their poor behavior would be, the partner, maybe the immediate family in the house. But to the outside world, they're always sort of kind and helpful.
Nice guy, right?
Yeah, nice guy. And
obsequious, what comes to mind.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because when you think of narcissism, immediately my brain goes to bombastic, loud, blustery people, or very famous egotists who, they're all about controlling a crowd or a room or a movement of some kind. And they are dangerous because they're narcissists, but they're easier to spot.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The kind of narcissist you were dealing with just came in so quietly and slowly. It's scary AF.
It is scary AF, and it is like a stealth bomber. So I just want people to understand something I never knew is that not everyone you meet has your best interests in mind. Right?
I'll drink to that.
You think?
I did not know that. This is how, sort of like just unaware I was. I thought that everybody thinks like me. Now that's a pretty naive way to think. And I thought that human beings are just all doing their best. We're fear-based, we're insecure. We have all kinds of, issues that cause us to make mistakes, right? So sometimes people cheat or they lie because they're afraid, but they didn't mean to, right? That's what I thought. And then I thought there were serial killers. So I thought we were all humans and then serial killers. And I am absolutely wrong. I have come to learn that there are a good chunk of people, almost half of them, who are more opportunistic and more transactional in the way that they interact with other people. And when they meet you, instead of thinking, what can I do for you? They're thinking, what can I get from you?
Yeah.
What can I get away from you? Right. And so when my second husband met me, he thought, she's got a house, she's got a cool job, she's got money, she's got a lot of friends. I want that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. That's and hence the title of your book, Dark Force, right?
Yes.
And
I will tell you that a narcissist has an energy. I mean, everybody has an energy. We're all energy, right? But you can feel that kind of dark energy around somebody that you feel uncomfortable and you don't really know why because they're smiling at you.
We have a little cat here called Butch Cassidy, and he's 15 now, and he's seen probably 1,000 people come through this house in 15 years with, the events and the parties and the clients and dinner parties and whatever. And before we do like a serious business deal with anybody, we say, well, why don't you come to the house? And, I love to cook, and I'm okay at it. So I'll put on a dinner. And if Butch takes to them, we do the deal. It sounds so stupid, but if Butch either hisses or sprays nearby them, and he's fixed, he shouldn't spray.
Doesn't come in.
Or just if he
stays in the garden.
If he gets their vibe and he just runs out the door and doesn't come into the house. Nope. Not going to do it.
That's great. Well, see, because cats can pick up, and dogs, energy. Like I said,
I know it sounds totally hippy dippy.
Yeah.
And I hope that if anybody out there is thinking of doing business with us, we won't. If you're allergic to cats, you don't have to pass the cat test because Angie and I are and Martin, we're pretty good at that too. But, if it's a really big deal where we're going to be joined at the hip with somebody for 1.5 years, 2 years on a project, you've got to be aware of people's aura and their energy. And so many of us are sort of this conditioned yellow, they call it. It's like we're all on this middle, we're not going to stop, we're not going to go, we're just going to exist. And I think the pandemic did a lot of harm in that world. It shut us all in our houses. We all sat on our couches for 2 years. And you've really got to make a decision about people. Just thumbs up, thumbs down. There is no thumbs middle. I'll make a decision about this person later. My life won't work.
Well, I believe in my gut, actually.
Yep.
My gut reaction when I first meet somebody, that's always the right one. I've not always, stayed living by it. And if I had, my life would have been very different.
Yeah.
But whatever's your immediate reaction when you meet somebody, we met 2 new people on Saturday night, and I loved them both immediately.
Yeah.
And I will
Mark
have
and Jackie.
No hesitation. If you're watching, Mark with a C.
I know Ashley's watching.
Jackie.
He introduced us.
Ashley, thank you for bringing them into our lives.
Yeah, you just know
they
immediately.
are just wonderful people.
Well,
My guts tell me so.
I think it's probably similar when people say love at first sight, right? But that's what's so dangerous about these covert narcissists is they mask up and they play the character that they know. They've studied you. They know that what character you're going to latch onto, and that's the role they play.
Well, I want to step back for just 1 second. I'm so glad you brought that up, Angie, because that's the other thing I tell everybody: learn to trust your gut.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about this energy thing, this sort of negative or bad energy. There's something not adding up here. Don't know what it is, but you're going to feel it. So when I was saying earlier about my cognitive dissonance skills, I pushed those feelings down, but I had those feelings on my first date with Mr. Dark Fabio. We'll call him, his name in the book is Fabio. That's not his real name. If you're going to write a memoir, change everybody's name, change everything so nobody sues you. I'm not here to malign any individual. I'm just here really to, create some awareness about how to protect yourself and to educate some people. But yes, on that first date, had I trusted my gut, which was, I feel a little lied to. I feel like he was avoiding an answer. A couple other weird things happened. But I just pushed that down and was so thrilled with the attention I was getting.
Yes. Yeah.
About my own needs and what I was getting fed, with the attention I wanted. But if I could go back in time, I would have spent a little more time investigating why I didn't feel quite right about him.
Agreed. Yeah.
So now people can buy your book on your website, correct?
Everywhere. Hold on, let me get it out for you.
All right. And where's the while you're there we are, folks.
There it is.
And if they buy it on your website, presumably you're able to sign it for them. Is that correct?
That is correct. So my book is available on my website, and that is adarkforce.com, or you can use my name, erinriley.com. They both go to the same place. And you can get an autographed copy of my book, but also I sell, just in case anybody needs one of these too. We have these.
Voodoo dolls.
Oh, yes, we talked about that.
I love those.
And I have a need for one of those.
Yeah.
Well, I will send you one.
Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you.
Fantastic. I love it.
With 3 tiny little pins in them as well, too. So
excellent. I love
it. Part of just, like having a little humor around the whole thing. It's certainly not a humorous situation at all to be taken advantage of by a narcissist.
Sure.
But I want to tell you, I have a big true crime story. Like, without getting all into it, my husband and I, after 20 years, we built a house on an island off the coast of Panama that we were going to retire to, right? He had figured out a way to isolate me to another country, to an island, away from all of my friends and family. And in the very, very end, I was afraid to go, right? I was afraid to go that far away with him. And that's what ended up ending the marriage. So I'm safely, here in the United States, but he's off in Panama with all of my possessions, my house, everything I ever owned, right? Look at your eyes. Everything I ever owned was shipped down there. Because he kept promising me he was going to be happier in Panama. Our relationship was going to be better, and he would be retired, and we would enjoy the sun and land. And they call that future faking, when somebody. But he got away with a lot. But I'm a survivor, and I learned my lessons, and I'm here to help other people to avoid such painful.
In other words, you refuse to be a victim.
That is correct.
Yeah.
No, I get emails every single week, 2 or 3 of them, from people that are really validated by my book. They've had the same kind of a confusing, awful relationship. And these relationships with people who are gaslighters and game players and blame shifters and projectors, you'll just start to shut down. Your health will be affected, your ability to focus and concentrate. Yeah. It's more damaging than you can possibly believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So kids, head over to erinriley.com or adarkforce.com, and also keep your bookmarks on womenwhorock.com. And speaking of women who rock,
the recording artist.
Yeah, and the recording artist, our dear friend and amazing producer Otto Daniolo, for which you are the music supervisor, therecordingartist.com, which is fascinating series. It's on Roku and Amazon about developing bands and how they really Otto puts them through their paces in 3 straight hours. They have to make a single and do it right. And
that's right. And we're about 10 days away from the debut of season 2. So that's going to be announced very soon.
Okay.
The episode 1 of season 2 that I'm a part of with Otto. So real honor to be a part of that.
Nice.
That's the recordingartist.com, which is bookmarked and on my Roku. I love that show. You guys do well. Otto does great work, and I'm sure you're a great addition to the crew. So this has just been, I can't believe, like almost an hour flew by. Incredible.
It is incredible.
Just what a fascinating gal you are. And thank you so much. I know how busy you are. You got so many projects going on. So please, thanks everybody for tuning in from, oh my gosh, all around the world.
And this program will be on YouTube a little later.
We'll post it on YouTube.
Put it up.
So Ashley's asking where's the book available. So it's adarkforce.com or erinriley.com. You can go and do there. And Otto's saying Erin is awesome on the show. Can't wait to drop episode 1. Thank you, Otto, who was also on recently.
Yeah.
And you can go see Otto's episode on our YouTube channel.
And Mimi Chen.
And Mimi Chen was on a little while ago. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And can I just tell you something? I just got a notification that I just got an order through my website. Just now.
Good. Great.
Thank you, whomever the first book buyer is today, and I hope you all jump on there because it's a fascinating read, and it's not just a fascinating read. I've only had the chance to skip through it because Ange got it first, but it's a handbook I think that people should pick up every time they meet somebody new and they get that that red flag. Pick this book up and read it again. Just don't let your gut or your stupidity or your need or whatever get in the way. Go back. This is a book you can read 10 times in your life and it'll save you a lot of grief.
I want people to buy it for their young kids, meaning 18, 19, 20. You know, wouldn't it be great to have this kind of information before you meet a narcissist?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's what I really want is people to share this information with young people so they can learn to recognize it. And before we go away, because I know we're going away, I want to show everybody my pants that I wore. Hold on.
Oh yeah, baby. Look at them pants. Look, we have the matching pillow.
Right? Hold on. I have to wait. Where is it? This. Beautiful, right?
There you go. Excellent. Well, thanks again.
You all dressed for the occasion.
Your valuable time with us.
It's been wonderful.
Loved it. Lots of great comments. And this will be on YouTube in just a little bit. And go check her out at erinriley.com for all things fabulous.
Okay, so we're going to say farewell from beautiful downtown Playa del Rey.
And we will see you guys all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.